Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with Emmett Muckles. Today is a day that the Lord has gave you. Rejoice in this moment and be glad. Yesterday is gone, so don't even sweat that. Don't let that bother you still. Tomorrow's not here yet because we are the ultimate creators. We can create something out of nothing. We can do magic. We can predict the future because if we can imagine it, we can do it. Now that that's done, I've gotten the message out to you. Today, my guest is James Purpura. How are you, sir?
Man, I am fantastic, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I pre the show, you and I were just chatting real quick about life. And, I'm always looking at people and I'm not judging them. And the reason why I am not judging them because I know that lives are diverse. And as human beings, we can go through the fire and come out as phoenixes, or we can go through the fire and it can burn us up. And you've been through some of that. So you've created a book, you've got a movie, but let's go back through your journey a little bit to tell us how you got to now, and as I do with all my guests.
So, essentially kind of the long and short of it is that our book and movie is called Perception, Seeing is Not Believing. So the title tells you something. It's like seeing is not believing. And the basic premise of everything that we're doing is everybody's on a journey somewhere, right? If you don't start paying attention, you might end up somewhere you don't want to be, right? And so for me, what that looked like was, I had a really abusive situation in my kindergarten class. So, I had some learning disabilities. On the first day I was supposed to go to special ed, and my teacher calls me up in the front of the room and she says, that only stupid and retarded kids go to special ed. And I was shocked. I'm like, what just happened, right? And then on my way out the door, when she sent me out the door, she made the entire class call me stupid on the way out the door. And my hope was that was going to just be a one-time thing. And I went home, told my mom she was undiagnosed bipolar disorder, depression. And my dad was out of the picture. So she didn't have the capability to handle something like that. And she just basically said, look, the world's a rough place. The sooner you get used to that, the better. And so the next day I go in and the same thing happens. And it happened every single day for the first year of my school. My teacher told me I was stupid and made the entire class call me stupid on the way out the door.
I couldn't believe that when I was watching the movie. I was like, first I was just mad at the teacher because if you've been around enough, you know that the first 7 years of a child's life are formidable in forming who they're going to be in this world. So the best programming, no matter who the child is pop programming. Anything that sticks hard. I can attest that myself.
Yeah. I mean, when, people will ask me sometimes, well, have you ever gone back and looked for the teacher? I'm like, no, hell no. No, I mean, the basic principle people need to understand is that hurt people, right?
Oh, that's a good one.
The vast majority of people who inflict trauma on people are people who had trauma inflicted on them. Yeah. And unfortunately, as their way to express their pain, they repeat the cycle. And so I often ask people, it's like, who's stronger? The victim or the predator? And it's like, well, if the victim didn't choose to repeat the cycle, then they're stronger because the predator certainly did. And that gives context to that. But essentially what our book and movie is about is from there, my life was hard, right? Yeah. And eventually I ended up on drugs. I ended up, committing small crimes to feed my addiction. And I made the wrong police officer mad at me and I ended up in jail, solitary confinement, as a matter of fact.
Ooh.
And I was there for 15 months.
So
I'm locked in a cell with the person that I'm most afraid of, which is me.
Was it hard detox in that moment too?
So luckily, I had actually sobered up before I went to jail.
Yeah.
Right. And so the reason I really upset a police officer is because he pulled me out of jail. He was working the biggest case of his life, and he was like, "Hey, need you to go find this person. They run in the same drug circles." So, they put one of those trackers on me. I went in the front of the drug house, went out the back of the drug house, cut the tracker, and they found me 4 months later in South Carolina. Right. I mean, and I was like all the way across the country, and that really upset them for some reason. I don't know. And so that's why I ended up in solitary confinement. But luckily I connected with a friend, and that friend really helped me get sober.
That's good. And that's one of the things too, because I just made this video saying, if you need mentorship in this specific area, just call me, because sometimes you just need somebody there for you. And that can make all the difference in the world. And I was looking at your information. I was looking at the video. The video really struck me. I watched the first couple of minutes of it. And when I saw that, I was enraged, because that's just something you don't do. But I understand about life. And I wanted to pose it to you. So why do we sometimes not see ourselves as others see us?
Right. Well, the basic principle is that you choose to believe things about yourself that aren't true based on the interactions we have as children, right? It's like, who's going to decide how your life is going to turn out? In my case, it was my 5-year-old self.
Right.
Right. And that's what we're trying to demonstrate, is that that situation put me on a path to somewhere. Well, when I was in jail, I had this kind of awareness, right? When I got there, my dad wrote me a letter and he said, "Hey, listen, I don't know how long you're going to be there, but, people don't get a lot of time to work on themselves in their adult life. Don't let this time go to waste." And so I started getting books and reading everything I could. I started to educate myself, and I started to meditate myself. And I used to write these long, because I'd felt like a victim, right? Like life was happening to me.
Right.
I used to write these long letters of people who I felt like had harmed me. I used to write these lists. And then I would go into my meditation, right? And I would offer them forgiveness. And so one day I was writing this list, and I looked down and I go, wait a second. The only common denominator between all those situations is me.
Right.
Right. I was like, what if I'm somehow the cause of all this? And I'd never really considered before that point that I might be the creator of my existence. Right. And so I was like, well, what is it? What does that mean? And so I thought about what it meant if I wasn't the creator of my existence. And what that meant to me was, because I'd had a hard life and bad things had happened to me, then that meant the world really was a terrible place, and I probably didn't want to play anymore.
Right.
But if I was, in fact, the creator, and I could figure out how I created those circumstances, then I could create a life for myself that was magical, that I could get everything I wanted. And so as I thought about those two ideas, it was on that day I chose to be the creator of my experiences. And not until much later did I realize it was that day I took my power back. Yeah. And so as a subset of that, I had to take responsibility for everything that happened to me. And this is the part where people get kind of twisted. They're like, are you victim shaming right now? Are you victim shaming your younger self? And I'm saying no, because you don't understand what I'm taking responsibility for. And they're like, what are you taking responsibility for? Right. And what I would say is that I never, ever, take responsibility for the actions of other people. I leave that off them. Right. When I think about forgiveness is about letting myself off the hook.
Yeah.
Not about letting somebody else off the hook. That's their job. That's their job to forgive themselves. So the next question I ask myself, and you'll love this, is, okay, so did my abuse define me? Right. Is that what defined me? And so I thought, well, if my abuse did define me, then I'm stuck forever because I can't go back and change the abuse. And so I thought to myself, well, does everybody that's ever incurred abuse allowed it to destroy them? And the answer was no, then my abuse couldn't define me. So what defined me? And this is what I decided was, it's what I chose to believe about myself because of going through the abuse. I chose to believe I was stupid. I chose to believe that I was not good enough. And so oftentimes people will say to me, they'll go, James, don't do that to yourself. And I'll be like, what? And they'll be like, don't do that. You were 5. How were you going to know better? And I said, will you please stop taking my power away? Right? Because if it's my choice, I can always go back and choose something different. Right? And so even though I was 5 and I made the most logical conclusion based on the information that was presented to me, it was still my choice. And now I have the power to go back and choose again and recreate my life from that point forward.
So when you were consuming this information, did you come across any Buddhism or any disciplines that kind of helped you see from a different perspective?
So I read a couple of different types of books. I read self-help books, I read some spiritual books, and I read books on meditation, right? And so certainly there was a lot of books that were associated with meditation that had a Buddhist look and feel. One of them was Ram Dass's book. It wasn't Buddhism, right? It was
that keeps
Here
coming
Now.
Up.
What's that?
That book keeps coming up on this show.
Well, and I didn't actually think it was all that good of a book. The reason what resonated with me was this idea. It was the idea that the world that he described on the inside was much bigger than anything I had experienced on the outside.
Oh.
Right? That was the only thing that stuck with me. And so I was really trying to understand my inner world from that point forward. Right? And so I did. I actually read a lot on Buddhism. I actually told the jail I was a Buddhist so I could go on a vegetarian diet to get out of the eating the terrible meat they had.
Yeah.
I'm a meat eater. I'm not saying I'm not, but their meat was terrible. So I was, I read a lot of that sort of thing, but I was just on a quest for information.
Yep.
And here was my quest. It was plain and simple. I'm going to figure out the mechanisms by which we create our lives so that I could create a new life that was fantastic for me. About a year after I got out of jail, I met my wife, who she had a rougher story than me. Last thing she needed was another loser in her life, right? And I was just like, I swear I'm on my way up. And she took a chance on me, even though I didn't even have a car, right? And she took a chance on this loser, and I just said, look, I'm going to the top. And so from the time I left that jail cell to my first $1 million was 9 years.
That's not a long time.
What's that?
That's not a long time.
Seemed like an eternity to me. People say, oh, that's quick. I'm like, the hell you say that wasn't quick. Because we worked.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what people don't understand. It's like, I think people believe in the act of God type of change. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to win the lottery or something's going to come along, this great opportunity. And change doesn't work that way, right? And so my wife and I would sit on the bed every night and talk about issues and talk about challenges. I remember one day it was like, well, where are we going to start? And I was like, I hate myself, so I'll just tell myself I love myself. And so I was like, I love myself. Liar, in my head. And how many times did I do it? 1 million times. After a while, it seemed like less of a lie, right? After a while, it kind of seemed true. And after a while, it was true. But once I implanted that thought deep into my subconscious mind, it started showing up in my outside world.
Now, this is funny because you're like the affirmation of my show. Literally. Every beginning and every end, there's something like you and I are kindred. But this is what's so cool about it, because now you're the manifestation of what all I've been saying. And that's what's so awesome. And, I know you see this now because there's people who knew you then, people who know you now, and sometimes they don't meet. And I'm sure from where you came from, you saw some people who were inherently negative. And then you saw some who were just like a ball of sunshine. Why are some people that way? Why can't, people move to the positive side, to the flow of life like others can?
So every negative person I meet, every pessimist I meet says the same thing. I'm not a pessimist. I'm a realist, right? That's what they always say. I'm a realist. I like to keep it real. And it's like, here's what the pessimist fails to understand. And this is what most people fail to understand, is that their pessimistic view of the world is no more or less based in reality than my optimistic view of the world, right? And so the underlying principle behind perception is you don't see reality. You only see your version of what you think reality is. Your mind is constructing it on the fly, basically.
Yeah.
And so what happens when you adopt pessimism? There is an upside to pessimism. And here's what it is. So here's how your perception works, is that your perception is based in a limiting field. You can only see what you believe to be possible. The more you see it, the more likely you are to see it. The less you believe it. The more you believe it, the more likely you are to see it. The less you believe it, the less likely you are to see it. And that doesn't make sense to people, and I'll explain that in a second. But here's where pessimism comes in. I want you to think about a negative point of view. What are you doing? Shoulders are slumped over, right? Your head's down. You're focused on the most negative outcome, and you actually make that outcome more likely.
Yeah.
So here's the upside of pessimism. You get to be right. It's like, I told you it was going to be bad, and it was bad. I told you. Didn't I tell you? I told you that was going to be bad. It's like, you get to be right. It's like, oh, you're right. Your life is terrible, right? It's like, the downside to pessimism is you'll never, ever accomplish your dreams. And here's why. It's because, when you're in a positive mind frame, is that you can see more of the available information and more of the available opportunities. It's not that you're in a place to take them yet, but you're seeing more of the information. So you're not making the most negative outcome the most likely. And so that's the cost of pessimism. You get to be right is the good news. You get to be miserable is the bad news, right? But people don't see it that way because they think they see reality. So they're a realist because they always predict the worst thing is going to happen. And what happens? The worst thing, right? And that's because they don't understand the cost is the basic principle.
I know that you guys put this together, but how did it come to be that you said, I'm going to put this in a book and then I'm going to really hit them because most people are audiovisual today. So I'm going to make a movie too. Most people can't even write a blog post.
Right. So here's where it comes from it's been 17, 18 years since I was in that jail cell now. And here's what I got to is that it was a grueling climb to the top because I didn't know anything, right? And so here's what most people like to think, that life's a mystery. But in fact, there is no mystery of life. There are two ideas and concepts that dictate everything that you are, everything that you see, everything that you feel. And those two concepts are your perception and your emotions. When you understand those concepts on a very deep level, then you can literally create anything you want, right? And so I think the reason my commitment was like, if I can figure this out, I'll share this with other seekers so that they don't have to take 17 years to get to where I am, right? And it was a hard battle because it was like, I didn't know that going in. So I had to figure out all of that. And so it's like, I tell people a really simple story to kind of explain how simple the concept is. And it's like, what is the underlying principle around perception is you can only see what you believe to be possible. And the second one is what you see and feel on the inside, or what you believe and feel on the inside is reflected on the outside. And that's what you're interacting with. So I ask people all the time, and I ask you this question, Emmett, can you have the thing that you want most in the world, the opportunity to get that thing right in front of your face and just not see it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, most people would probably say no, but I'm going to tell you a real simple story to demonstrate how prevalent this is. So I want you to imagine a man. This man wants more than anything to be loved. He wants to be in a relationship, but he's got really low self-esteem, terrible self-image. One day, this man walks into a store. He walks up to the counter, and the girl behind the counter starts flirting with him. My question for you is, does he recognize the girl is flirting with him?
No.
Yeah, so most people go, probably not, right? Which is the right answer and so the question is that, and this is what I tell people, is like, if this guy has the opportunity to get the thing that he wants most in the world right in front of his face and he can't see it, what if that's happening to you? And what if I could prove to you that that was the most likely case, right? And so you have to ask yourself, why didn't he see it? Well, because you said he had low self-esteem. So low self-esteem, which is a belief on the inside, is impacting what he sees on the outside, right? And they're like, yeah, right. Then you already understand how perception works, but you think this is a cute story when in fact, this is the only way that it works. And so I'm sure you've heard of the law of attraction, right?
Oh, yeah.
So people actually get the law of attraction slightly wrong. And here's where they get it wrong is that the law of attraction was never about some magical force to drag something into you that magically appears. The reason you put stuff on a vision board is to elicit belief, is to create belief. not so something will show up. It's so that you'll see the opportunity that's already there. It's already in front of you, and it has to be in front of you. They're like, well, what does that mean? I said, once you set your intention, opportunities start showing up. But you can't see them until you believe them. And here's why. And it's very simple. It's just like, would you go to the end of a rainbow and look for a pot of gold?
No.
Okay. Why?
I'm a science person, so that is...
You don't believe it's there.
That makes sense.
You don't believe it's there, right?
Right.
Okay. So your mind works the same way. Your mind does not look for things that you don't believe are there. And so if that guy doesn't believe that love is possible for him, his mind simply isn't looking out for it. And so what people don't realize is your mind takes in millions of bits of information a second, compresses it down to the most interesting bits, delivers it to your conscious mind as this is reality. Right. And so he walks into the store. What's reality? In actual reality, the girl's flirting with him. He doesn't see it. He might even be telling himself, a girl like this would never be interested in me. But let me give you, let's add a little twist to the story. I want you to say that you're that guy's friend and you're standing off to the side back behind him and you're watching this interaction. He goes to leave the counter and comes walking towards you. What do you say?
Bro.
Dude, what's up?
Like the train was right there and the door was open.
Right?
And you didn't get on the bus.
Actually, we've been in that situation. We've either been the guy or the friend, right? And you're like, the second the friend says it, what happens? Oh, like, oh my God, you're totally right. Like, wait, oh, damn, I missed it, right? And it's like, that's life, right? Because your mind is only looking for things that you believe are possible. I'll show you the power of your mind. Think about the car you're driving right now, right? I want you to think about when you went and you bought that car and you drove it home. And all of a sudden, next day you're driving around and everybody in your damn neighborhood's got that car. You're like, where did...
That's a perfect example.
You didn't even see it before,
right?
Because your mind wasn't looking for it, right? And that's how our mind works. It's a very powerful computer. And so what most people don't realize is that your mind works something similar to a Google search. And so every time you have an experience, your mind goes, oh, is placing meaning on this experience instantly. And basically what it does, it goes back into your memories, finds the experience that's most similar to the experience you now and says, this is what this experience means. And so our lives become these repeating patterns, wash, rinse, repeat, because the past is always casting a shadow over the future. But you can break free of that cycle and create whatever you want.
So where does gratitude fall into your life before and probably now? Are they different?
So gratitude is a very powerful hack, is how I would put it, right? So here's what people don't understand is, so would you say that you have free will?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so what if I could challenge that just a little bit, right?
Sure.
And not in the Sam Harris point of view. It's something much more simple. And it's this, is that human beings can only act in accordance with their beliefs based on their current emotional and physiological state, which means is that the way we're programmed is we can only do things that are in accordance with our belief. We don't look at a situation and go, you know what, I'm going to do something today that's completely, opposite of what I think is in my best interest. We just we're not functioning that way. So there actually is a program that dictates free will. So in the moment, you are limited to acting within your beliefs. So free will isn't actually executed in the moment. Free will is executed that you have the power to change what you believe, right? And so at any point, you can go back and change your self-esteem. At any point, at the beginning of the show, you opened up with this idea, these beliefs. It's like, where do we get them from? Well, we believe people in our childhood. They say you're stupid, you believe you're stupid. They say you're fat, you believe you're fat. And so you believe all this stuff. And if you don't go back and question those beliefs are shaping your perception, which is shaping your decisions. And so our free will is to go back into the past, like I did in that kindergarten situation, change the belief, not so what I'm doing right now will be changed, so what I do in the future will be changed. And that's where free will gets implemented, is our ability to change what we believe to be true about things, and doing so change our reality.
I want to hit on another subject or get your thoughts on it. We live in a big victim culture. Everybody's a victim. No one has the ownership. They would say, here, you did that to me. You're doing that to us. Yada, 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 yada. You can't say that about me. And in actuality, anybody can, like for me, they can say, your head is really big. Well, it may be to you, but to me, I have the most elliptical dome in the world, and it's beautiful like a wonderful mountain.
Because of my big brain.
That's right.
I'm sorry your brain's not as big as mine.
Right, but I see it so often where people are just victims and not willing to do the work, not willing to go on the journey.
So here's why. It actually makes perfect sense. So why would I take responsibility for something if I didn't know how to change it? Because if I did, that would just cause me more pain, right? So in other words, it's like, it's easy to blame. That takes the pain off of me and I project it on you. And so I'll continue to do that until I either understand the cost or understand how to change it. And so when I sat in that jail cell and I said, I'm owning all of it, you know, and I have this narrative, it's like, it's all my fault. I'll take it. It's mine. Right. It's my fault. And the question is why? And the answer is because what people don't understand is this, is that when you are a victim or you're in a victim mentality and you push things out on other people, you actually give your power away. You have no power to change it. And so it makes perfect sense until you figure out how to change it. And that's what our book is about. You know, it's like perception, understanding, you know, that your perception, you know, shapes your reality. And then we actually misunderstand our emotions. And this is where the victim thing comes in, right? And this is how it works, is that every time your mind goes to the past to source what's happening now, the past actually has an emotion attached to it. And that's why all of a sudden you're angry and you don't know why. And your wife's looking at you like crazy. And you're like, I don't know why I'm so mad right now, screaming at the kids. And it's like, because the past experience that your mind sourced to dictate what's going on now had an emotion attached to it. And so another part of change is that you have to go back into the past experiences, imprint new emotions, which is where gratitude comes in, right? And so here's the key I'm going to give you the key, and then I want to give you one more narrative. Okay. Here's the key to creating your life, is this thing. To create material wealth and anything on the outside, creativity is about changing your perception of the outside world, right? And so that's like mindset, right? You know, I am safe, I am loved. Like, you know, it's like, you know, good things always happen to me, or everything happens in my best interest. Those are the hacks, right? That change your perception of the outside world. And you can create anything you want with that. Yep. Happiness, well-being is about changing your perception of the inside world. And so even though they're both two sides of the same coin we call perception, they're very different things. And so I think that as a society, we've been made to choose. Do you want to be happy or do you want to be rich? Because you can't have both. So what do we have? We have a bunch of spiritual people that are happy, but they're broke, right? Can't do nothing but sit on their damn porch. And then we have a bunch of rich people that are miserable. And so the question is, can you have both? And the answer is not only can you have both, it is the most optimal path to create both at the same time. And that's what our book and movie is about. And so I think a lot of people, in my assessment, Emmett, and maybe you see this a lot too, spend a lot of time beating themselves up. And so I like to tell people this one thing. You've never made a bad decision. If I told you that, Emmett, what would you say?
Psst, whatever.
Yeah, no, I made a bad lot. You don't even know me.
Like I did 5 today.
I made a lot of bad decisions. Actually, Emmett, you're not even capable of making a bad decision. And here's why. Unless you're mentally ill. And here's why, is because we are only ever doing the best we can with the information that we have. At the time we make our decisions, we always make decisions that we think at the time we're making are in our best interest. So even though your decisions might not turn out the way you did, you were doing the best you could. And so here's what I tell people. You've never made a bad decision. You've only ever made decisions with bad information. And the difference is it phonetics? And the answer is no. And here's why it's really important, is there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with anybody. We all make decisions the same way. And so success and happiness and all the things we want in life don't come down. It's not an Emmett problem. It's not a James problem. It's not a Jane or Doe or anybody problem. What it is an information problem. So you can stop beating yourself up because the problem was never you. The problem is the information that you access to make your decisions. So if my life is better than yours, it's not because I'm smarter, better, faster. I got a fifth grade education, period. That's it. And so it's not like I'm smarter than you. It's because I have better information. And so you can stop beating yourself up because you're not the problem. The information's the problem. So the question is what's the source of our information? And now we're back to perception and emotions, right? Oh. Our perception is our source of information as well as our emotions. Our emotions are a feedback mechanism for when we're out of alignment with the things that we want. And so anytime you have a negative emotional response, here's what it is that your conscious mind and what's in your subconscious and unconscious mind are now having a disagreement. So, for example, it's like I tell people to ask themselves, like, why are you angry? It's like, if coming out of my childhood, you could say just about anything to me, but if you called me stupid, it was on. Right? And so I knew I was smart in my conscious mind, and I know I'm smart. And so when somebody would call me stupid and they didn't have to say the word, they could say, oh, you wouldn't understand. I would get angry. And it was like, why? Because there was a contradiction in what I believed in my conscious mind and what I believed in my subconscious mind. People tell me all the time, I got a manifestation mindset. I'm like, really? Why are you driving a Hyundai? And they're like, oh, well, it feels like it. And it's like, because what you don't understand is it's actually not what's in your conscious mind that creates your experience. It's what's in your subconscious and unconscious mind. And the key to manifesting the things that you want in your life is to reprogram what's in your subconscious mind. The only way you can do that is by understanding and working through your emotions around the things that you actually believe.
Now, how much television do you watch?
Almost none.
Because that's one thing that really took me to the next level is when I really limited my random just influx, because I realized something. A lot of especially around the time when I was in my mid 40s, it was like, I'm going to start questioning all these things people said you shouldn't do. I'm just going to take them off. And I started looking at stuff. I'm like, why did they say this? They're totally wrong. This, that, and the other. Also, it's called television programming. That's what they do to you. They program you. And when I left that alone, things came a lot easier because I didn't have a bias.
Well, not only that, I mean, you're right. You got to be open. It's what do you do with your time, right? And so it's not just television. It's like social media, right? And so what I call those things is the distraction, right? Engage in the distraction with purpose. So my wife will say to me, can we not watch Issues today and watch this show on Netflix I've been wanting to watch? She's like, sure, right? That's engaging in the distraction and purpose. If you have your phone out and you're getting ready to go on social media, maybe it's to consume some positive content, right? Maybe it's to do it. It's not, I would come to work and guys would say to me, oh, I'm really tired. I was up playing video games all night. I'm like, who the hell's got time to play video games?
Yeah.
Right? Watching TV. It's like, look, those things are distractions. What are they distractions from? Getting and accomplishing your dreams, right? If you're spending way too much time on social media, if you're spending way too much time watching television, I mean, there's people, they leave the TV on all day long. Yeah. It's like, you don't have time for that. It sucks you in and you've lost 4 hours, right? And that's 4 hours you could have been, executing on your dream.
At least 4 hours.
Right. But that's it. It's like, if you engage in the distraction, do it with purpose. I'm going to go play video games for 2 hours to disconnect, right? And I'm going to be fun. I'm going to go okay with it. I'm going to be okay with it. My kids tell me all the time, Dad, you got to download this game. It's so much fun. I'm like, I'm not going to download it. And they're like, why not? I'm like,
don't have time.
I'll probably like it, right? I'll probably like it, right? And it's going to add no value to my life. I'm trying to figure out the mysteries of the universe here. You want me to play Zombie Land or something on my phone? I don't have time for that, right?
Hey, so where can people find all your stuff?
So our website is called Powerful, the letter U. So Powerful You, and it's you because it's all about you. It's not about us. It's all about empowering you with the information. So listen, we've got a book called Perception, Seeing is Not Believing. We've got a movie called Perception, Seeing is Not Believing. It's winning awards all over the country, all over the world, actually. It just won Best Film at LA, and documentaries don't do that, right? It's a really raw film. We have a thing called Perception Sketch, which will test you in the 3 things you need to know in order to move your life forward. We actually have like a Netflix for personal development. So you can log in, you can subscribe on your phone, and you can get positive content all day long. And you can, turn your phone off and listen to it, and you're just like a podcast.
Good, because a lot of those video platforms, as soon as you turn it off, click, it's a wrap.
Yeah, no, this one's all set for that. So we have that, and then we have other content and stuff coming out as well. So you can find us at powerful-u.com, and that's powerful-u.com. And right now, just so you know, we have a ton of free resources. We're giving the book away for free. We're giving the movie away for free. We're trying to support people in this time of need. And the other thing I would say is that I just wrote an ebook.
Yeah.
And it's how to overcome fear in uncertain times. And so I wrote this ebook. It was like a month of getting up at 4 a.m. to support people in this time. And it really goes over the fear response. And so, we're right in the middle of the COVID thing, based on when you're hearing this podcast. What I would like to tell people, and what I think is really important to mention, and people fail to realize, is that whenever the economy takes a dive, that's when the most opportunity happens.
I was about to say that.
Right? That's it, man. More millionaires are made. My first million was made in 2008, right? Because that's when the opportunity was there. I was ready. And so, there's a saying in business, and, I want your listeners to think about this. And the saying is, the only thing worse than a company that completely fails is one that barely makes it. And so what I would say to you is, the only thing worse than a life that completely fails is one that barely makes it. So before you get on your horse trying to gain back that life that you just lost, if you're in that position, ask yourself if it was worth having in the first place. Because, it's like that old Fight Club saying, it's like, it's not until you have, that you lose everything that you're free to do anything. And so what I would tell the people is that if you're depressed and you're sad and you're thinking to yourself right now, how can I go on? How can you not? This is it. This is your chance. You never got a chance to rebuild it, to do it the way you wanted to do. Get information. Don't make a decision today that's going to impact the rest of your life. Move into something temporary so that you can figure out what your passion is.
And that's a big thing. People, especially in the United States, people are so worried about how other people are going to see them. I've literally been laughed at. And then 6 months to a year later, they're like, whoa, how'd you do that? It's like, I just kept shrugging at it. And that's the other thing too. In this culture right now, we have this misnomer that everything is like that. You have to build. You have to start somewhere and gain momentum. And once you get in that momentum, everything just like comes to you.
And then everybody's like, why is life so easy for Emmett? And you're like, I've been killing myself. Wait, you've missed that part, right? So first they laugh at you, then they ignore you, then you win, right?
Then they're like, your lifestyle's amazing. I was like, first, I think for my shiny things, not yours.
Yeah. Absolutely. And people just, they don't get the work. Do the work. You got to do the work, right?
And my shiny things are a little special, but I'm like, I don't care if you don't like it. I like it. And I'm going to find other people like me who like it.
I'm going to let everybody off the hook, okay? Because I think people get caught up in thinking about what other people think of them. Let me tell you something. You're not that important. They're not really thinking about you.
No.
They're thinking about, you want to know what they're thinking about? What you think of them, right? I mean, that's really, everybody's running around worrying about what everybody else thinks of them. And sure, people have their judgments, but that's like short-lived. It's like a snap. Oh, look at his hair, or look at that car, or whatever. Oh, he started a podcast. Oh, what an idiot, right? It's like, those are short-lived ideas. People don't give two craps about you. They're thinking about what other people think of them. So stop getting hung up and thinking what people think about you, because they're not thinking about you.
I do what I do because I like to do what I do.
Right.
Because
You're good at it.
like to do what I do. And another thing, the reason I do this is because I get to serve people. So there's somebody who needs to hear you. There's somebody who is just, and it might be one person. What I do, maybe one person, and they be like, I needed that.
Let's give a shout out to the millennials right now. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was telling my buddy the other day, I read this article, and it said 70% of millennials want to be famous, right?
Yeah.
You know what my buddy said?
What?
Is that all? Right? So here's the issue, and you nailed it. You got it right on the issue, is that the biggest problem I see is that people are asking the wrong question. And the wrong question is, what can you do for me, Emmett? That's the wrong question. The right question is, what can I do for you? Right? We're here to do service and value. It's a value exchange, right? We're doing service to, you're promoting my stuff. I'm giving benefit to your listeners. And so what people don't understand, and this is the part they miss, is success, happiness. All the good things in life was only ever about service.
Yep.
The way you become successful is by helping other people become successful. I figured out early on, if I want to get what I want, I got to help a lot of people figure out how to get to what they want. And that is it, millennials. You're running around going, I want to be famous. What can you do for me? If I go on Emmett's show, is it going to make me famous? It's like, no, you need to be asking yourself, how can I be of service? Yep. And when you get that question right, there ain't nothing that can stop you.
Well, this has been awesome, my man. And, are you guys doing any live events? Showing up, showing your pretty face?
Yeah, if it wasn't a pandemic or whatever they call it.
You know what I'm saying, man.
Pandemic. We don't have anything on the schedule because of it. But what we are doing is we're doing a lot. So to support people, we're doing live events every Tuesday and Thursday on our Facebook page.
Yep. Going
on live, doing free coaching, doing free events. We have a ton of speakers and teachers who go on there. And we're going to do that indefinitely until, the trauma around this situation ends. And then, once everything kind of lightens up, right? And then all these convention centers have all this space they want to give away for free.
Yeah.
Then I'll do a live event.
Awesome. Well, you better make sure. I'm going to know when it is. So
absolutely. We're going to do this again, right?
Just balling out of control.
That's right.
In our own way. And that's what's really important, because I don't think people really get to interact, especially now. A lot of people had things on the books and then it was shut down, and they had to basically indefinitely postpone their life, which is cool, because I've been actually saying this. I'm kind of enjoying this.
Me too. But there's a lot of people in trauma right now.
But you know what? And this is what I said, goes back to what I said at the beginning. We can predict the future because we can see what tomorrow is before it gets here. So back in 2008, I started seeing now. And I said, I'm never going through this again. I will never be cutting my pants down. So when they said, hey, everything's cut down, money's cut short, it's like, that's all right, because I made sure I planned for it.
That's right.
Because in this country, about every 7 to 10 years, curveball gets thrown at you.
I can't even believe 2008 was that long ago now.
Dude, that was 12 years ago.
Right? Back when we had a reasonable president.
Back when I didn't even have I didn't even know what an iPhone really was.
Right. I actually I got the first generation. I put it in my safe. I put it in my safe with the cord and everything. And my kids made fun of me, right? And they were making fun of me a while back. I was like, why don't we pull out Google and see what an iPhone Generation 1's worth? It was like $4,000. I was like, boom. I was like, you guys made fun of me.
And that's how it is. Well, I want to thank you for being on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast, my man. We'll do it again.
I enjoyed it, Emmett. Look, I can tell you're a kind soul. I can tell, that you are a seeker. You're somebody who's seeking out truth, and you're really trying to be of service. And I appreciate the work that you're doing in the world.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, remember this. You are a billionaire. See, we get it twisted. Money is a new thing. I mean, it's like less than 100, 200 years old. It's a new thing. Currency, it's not really a thing. But I'm going to tell you how you're a billionaire. So, your mom and your daddy were hanging out. They exchanged some information, some biological information. He had one piece. She had one piece. The cosmos blessed that union. 2 became 4. 4 became 8. 8 became 16 for 30 days. 30 days later, 2 to the power of 30, you were a billion cells and you weren't even on the planet yet. By the time you made it here, you were a trillionaire. But by the time you sucked in the air, you were a trillionaire. Now, I'm going to tell you how you connect, because everything is fractal. The next time you get out the shower, I want you to drop your towel and let all of it hang out. And I want you to revel in the fact that you have a body, a God body. You were blessed with life on a high level. And I want you to walk up to the mirror, and I want you to get close to the mirror, and I want you to look in your own eye, at your iris. And then I want you to go to Google and look up nebulae, because your iris is like a nebula in the sky. Everything is fractal. Look at plants. A plant can look like a woman, if you know what I'm talking about. Everything is fractal. So, when you see another entity with a nebulae in their eye that's like the one in the sky, treat it with love, honor, respect. And remember, say I love you to the nebulae in the mirror. Next time, do it, do it, do it. Love you all. Peace.